The Boston Red Sox are in a very interesting position going into the trade deadline. Maybe not as interesting anymore because it seems likely what they're going to do now, considering that they haven't won a series all July, and it's gone south for them somewhat quickly in 1 month. Only one win from a starting pitcher, and that is on the very last day of the month, yesterday, the 31st. So I'm here with Joey. We're going to try and figure out what the Red Sox are going to do for the deadline, who can be traded, maybe they could get in return.
Is it all falling down? Is it all over?
Yeah, no one knows what we're going to do, but we're going to try and predict what's going to happen right here on Bleacher Brawls. So this is the Red Sox trade deadline preview. Let's get straight into it. So first off, big thing, the Red Sox have a lot of expiring contracts. Jackie Bradley Jr. is one, and James Paxton is also another one, but I'm not going to include them because they're both not going to get traded.
The option. Paxton has
the option. And so does Jack. Jackie has a team option, but they're not going to trade him. Yeah. Right now they need defense desperately because if not, then they would have been beaten 50-5 against the Blue Jays last week instead of 28-5.
I think they need a lot.
So Jack's not going anywhere. Paxton, they're still hopeful on Paxton, and I actually think Paxton will be on the team in 2023. But the rest of the guys are Michael Wacha, Rich Hill, Kevin Pilecki, Matt Strahm, Christian Vazquez, Kike Hernandez, JD Martinez, and Eovaldi. Bogarts has a player option, but he's already been personally told that he's not going to be traded, so that won't be happening. 3 of those guys I just listed are currently on the injured list, so who knows if they get traded. We'll see. But I'll go to Joey. Let's start off with the guy who's really been in the rumors. JD Martinez came out just an hour or two before reporting that the Red Sox asking price is very high, a top 5 prospect, an MLB roster player, or a player from MLB roster, and an additional piece or cash considerations. That's a very high asking price. Thoughts on that?
Well, first, I think it's odd that the Red Sox are asking for cash considerations. Second, I think JD is worth that. JD is a key presence to have on a playoff team, right? He has that he's World Series winning experience. He's someone who teaches players how poise at the plate. So he's very important. For me, I love JD Martinez. Derek knows that. I love JD Martinez. But, this year, at this point, if we're sellers, JD's the first domino to fall. And if you don't keep JD, what's the point of keeping all these other expiring contracts? Because we've given up, right? I don't see a likelihood of re-signing JD Martinez after this season. So maybe it is best for the Red Sox to go and get a top 5 prospect from a team and, an MLB piece to try and fill that gap because, we're not going to be keeping JD. That's the trajectory Chaim Bloom is on. I don't personally agree with it, but since we're there, it's probably best that he's traded. I'll miss him very much. He's a great player, but he'll be very important to any playoff team.
Yeah, the rumors are really circling around the Mets right now. Rumors seems like Red Sox are interested in Mark Vientos, Dom Smith as the MLB player, and then additional piece or cash considerations. It's very interesting. Top 5 prospect Vientos is that now. I don't honestly know if the Red Sox can get a top 5 prospect. And what worries me with that is Martinez's struggles as of late. Did break out of it with, I think, 2 hits against the Brewers in the final game of the series. But you take out that game, the month of July has been horrific for him. And, I would think that's had to have lowered the value on JD at least a little bit. How much has it lowered it? I don't know. How much are teams willing to pay? It does look like it's going to be a seller's market.
I think it's the seller's market, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And, and I know a lot of people going crazy on Dom Smith. Why are they bringing in Dom Smith? Well, they kind of need someone who can play first base defensively. And then the DH slot could open up for Dahlbeck or Franchi if Martinez isn't there. I know Dom Smith is injured right now, but they just need bodies. They legitimately, they just need bodies right now. And Dom Smith is going to be dirt cheap. He's not going to add much value to a deal. So that would be kind of your MLB roster piece in that deal.
And I think this season, because of the expanded playoff format, is more of a seller's market than ever. So I don't think people should be that surprised to see pieces like JD. We'll talk about Eovaldi, we'll talk about Vazquez fetching far more and asking than what they would have last year because there are simply more teams that need players. There's simply more teams that want to compete and need to compete. I mean, there's an extra playoff spot, and with that adds a bunch more teams that are going to think they're in competition to win that playoff spot. So this is probably one of the most extreme sellers markets we'll ever see. So, maybe for Chaim Bloom, right? And I'm not a Chaim Bloom defender at all. He's thinking, wow, this is an unprecedented time where the market's at its very highest. And I'm going to be able to get rid of these guys. Instead of getting QOs or whatever at the end of the season, I'm going to get rid of these guys for high asking prices and cash in now while the stock is high. So I can totally see that as a strategy here. And it's very important that you do note that this is probably an unprecedented seller's market.
Yeah, and we saw it with the Luis Castillo deal. There was a legitimate bidding war because the Mariners wouldn't have given up that much if there wasn't a bidding war. Because the Yankees supposedly had an offer very close to that. And there were a couple other teams that were somewhat near that as well. That just tells me there was an absolute bidding war for Luis Castillo between multiple teams, not just one or two teams, 3, 4, 5 teams maybe. So it's 100% a seller's market. Look, there's so many teams in contention. Even just in the American League, there's a bunch of teams in contention. You have all 3 teams in the AL Central that are competing for that division. Yeah. And maybe even the wild card spot. You have 4 American League East, 3 definitely buying, and then Orioles. Who the heck? No, they probably aren't buying, but they're ahead of the Red Sox in the standards.
But even and another thing is with JD is NL has the DH, so all 30 teams can get him.
Exactly, and that's huge. Well, I think there's 9 teams competing for 6 playoff spots in the American League, maybe even 10. It's ridiculous. In the National League, there's still a bunch of teams. It seems like the Red Sox and the Giants are the equivalents to each other on each sides because they're both supposed to be a really good this year, or at least better, or make the playoffs good. And they both kind of had their share of struggles, and especially now in the month of July. And they're both looking like they're going to end up being sellers, but they could also maybe buy for the future a little bit with the small MLB piece here and there. That's what it's looking like for both teams. But next up, we're going to talk about Christian Vazquez because the Red Sox, they normally pair Rodney Baldwin on the taxi squad catcher, so they can leave the 2 catching prospects, Wong and Hernandez, in AAA and don't have to carry around with the team all the time. But going to Houston, they're bringing Ronaldo Hernandez as well. Connor Wong got hit in the hand in AAA, so he's not playing right now. What do you know? Hitting the wrist. Typical for the Red Sox now. But they're bringing Ronaldo Hernandez to Houston with them. And they're bringing Ronaldo Hernandez to Houston with them, which would signal that they might be trading Christian Vazquez. I think he's probably the second best catcher on the market besides Wilson Contreras, and the asking price for Contreras is ridiculously high. It's very, very high. And any team that misses out on Contreras is probably going to go for Vazquez. He's been rumored with the Mets in a deal with JD Martinez. Any team that's been interested in Contreras could look at Vazquez as well. So Houston could be an option. And the Red Sox will be in Houston as well. So that would make that trade a little easier.
I think the Red Sox would live to regret giving Vazquez to Houston. But the thing with Vazquez is, Vazquez maybe isn't on paper as sexy of a player as JD Martinez is or Eovaldi is, but he plays a position that's extremely important. And if you're a team that needs a catcher, well, there's really only 2 options right now on this market. It's him and Wilson Contreras. And whoever's gonna miss out on the Wilson Contreras deal is still gonna need a catcher. So the asking price for Vazquez, I think, would be actually very surprising to a lot of people that don't understand how the market works, right? And Vazquez, hitting 285, right? I believe
something like that. Yeah.
I mean, he's been excellent this year, and again, World Series experience. So he's going to fetch a big asking price.
Yeah, it's definitely something to consider. The market, it's you have the regular trade value, but then it's also a little bit of economics, supply and demand. There's not a lot of catchers on the market, and there are teams who need catchers, especially that are competing for the postseason. So you
can't live without a catcher. You can live without a DH. You can live without an extra starting pitcher. You can throw one of your infielders in the outfield. But if you need a catcher, you need a catcher, right?
Exactly. And there's not that many good ones. It's good ones that you can get for somewhat cheap because he is a rental. Some teams may get him with the idea of him being just a rental. There might be a couple other teams who are looking at him as an option for beyond 2022 and hoping to sign him past 2022.
Yeah, I mean, the scary thing with the Red Sox is I don't know what catchers will be free agents after this season, but I haven't heard of any notable ones.
It's Contreras, Vazquez, and Narvaez is. There's not like there aren't many better options.
If we're parting ways with Vazquez, I have to imagine that we're not going to re-sign him in free agency.
No, they're putting their faith in one of, if not both, of Connor Wong and Ronaldo Hernandez,
which
could be scary, but you do eventually are gonna have to figure out what you have in these guys.
I mean, that makes me positively melancholic that Connor Wong would be our starting catcher next season, but you'll be very happy with it, I'm sure.
Well, I mean, he's solid defensively. He's not going to give you the most offense, but like he's not the worst option ever. Like they're definitely, you could like I'd rather have a young guy who's solid defensively but maybe isn't the greatest hitter than a guy who's 35 who's good defensively, but they still can't hit. And that's why the Astros are looking for a catcher because Martin Maldonado, for how good he is defensively, cannot hit to save his life, especially in the playoffs like we saw last year. And they do need a future catcher.
I think you just showed that you really don't see the Red Sox as a playoff team next year. I think you may have just Freudian slipped that.
Here's the thing. I think next year they need to see what they have in some guys. And it's the perfect opportunity to do it. That's what I'm saying.
If you see just JD treated, and this is for all the Red Sox fans listening, if you see just JD traded this season, the Red Sox can still do the whole, we're trying to compete thing. But if you see JD plus Eovaldi or JD plus Vazquez traded, the Red Sox are no longer going to be able to play the charade of we're still trying to compete. They're going to admit that they've given up the season.
Well, right? Here's the thing, though. Jeff Passan on ESPN said the Red Sox could deal 5 to 8 players.
If they deal 5 to 8 players, I mean, listen, I think if you deal JD, you might as well deal everyone you're not going to re-sign because you're not competing. This team will not compete without JD Martinez. That's my view.
I don't think they're going to try and compete the rest of the year. I don't think that they have so many teams now that they have to leapfrog again. They have to jump past them in the standings again just to hit the wild card spot. I don't know if they're really in the spot to do it, especially with how bad the month of July has been for them. Yes, they could be streaky, but I don't know if that's going to save them.
And another thing that's very important is I feel like we're going to ruin a lot of these young prospects that are up because I think, for example, Bello, I mean, we've almost ruined his confidence, I would say, right? I
mean, he looked a lot better against Milwaukee.
Yeah, but he didn't even come in as the starting pitcher.
Yeah, but I don't think that's necessarily a confidence thing. I think that's just I think too it's rough coming in
saying we do not trust you to start the game. And I think there are other prospects which we're in danger of because of our lack of roster of just murdering their confidence and maybe stunting them for a little bit. I mean, you look at our rotation, the only person really that successful is Cutter Crawford. Winkowski hasn't been successful. Bello has not been successful, right? So I do worry that, if we end up trading these 6 to 8 players that are expiring, we're going to have all these kids up who we believe to be prospects, and they're just going to get their brains beat in for 2 months. And I don't think that's healthy for anyone.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it is very interesting to see what's going to happen. 5 to 8 players being dealt, that tells me the guys who are on the block are pretty much all the expiring guys. Rich Hill's been a name, potentially. Even Waka, I think, has come up, potentially.
The thing is,
Martinez, Vazquez.
Even in the non-red, Waka has playoff experience. Rich Hill has World Series experience. All these guys are people you want in a World Series run.
Yeah, and you're not even necessarily a World Series run, just a team that just needs innings. Rich Hill can give that to you. Rich Hill can just go out and give you innings. And Michael Waka could be a decent piece for a team who desperately needs a starter. You obviously have Eovaldi. You have Nate Eovaldi. I mean, Matt Strahm, if someone needs a lefty option bullpen, because he only signed a 1-year deal this offseason with the Red Sox. He's a free agent as well.
I mean, I'd like to see the Red Sox try and keep, at least some of the bullpen, because I really wouldn't want a hard reset on this team entirely. But when it comes to Michael Waka, I mean, if you're a team and you saw how he performed for the first couple months this season, you're probably salivating at Michael Walker because you could get him for cheap and he could go out there and pitch like an ace. I mean, there's not a lot of people that can do that.
Yeah, well, I will say Walker's underlying numbers is the batted balls numbers against him don't show him in the greatest light. They don't show him as a bad pitcher, but they show him a little bit worse than what they definitely show him worse as what he has done. But no one's gonna get Michael Walker. But no one. But here's I'm gonna go with this. No one's gonna say we're getting Michael Walker to be our ace. They're gonna get him to be a third or fourth starter, and he can be that. He can be more than that. Like he can be a very good third or fourth starter.
You know who he kind of reminds me of? In this, like he would be like a Ryan Dempster, Jake Peavy type of guy to pick up. You know, someone that used to be really good, used to be an ace, twilight of his career, but let's bring him on for the playoff run. And that's something that teams do all the time.
And it can still be a very, very good piece to a playoff team. It can give you valuable starts. So I think a little bit too, like almost like John Lackey in 2013 with the Red Sox. Yeah, they already had him. But a guy who's older, past his prime, but could still give you very good outings. And he still had a few years left in him even after the fact with the Cardinals and then with the Cubs in 2016 when they won that World Series. I think Walker still has another couple years in him after this year. But I don't think anyone's going to trade for him expecting, we're getting more than just this year. No, they want him for this year, and it's still an option, even though the heavy arm, what they're calling it, could be a little bit of a problem.
That's right. What else is on the block, Derek?
Plawecki, I don't see him getting moved. He just hasn't played well this year.
What? Yeah, for what?
Yeah, and there's really not. I mean, unless I know no verified source has said any of this. But I know there are people who are saying, "Well, Heim should sell Heim and Schreiber." I don't see it happening. I think you could.
Too much years of control. I mean, we have no bullpen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's not.
Kike is an option. He's on the injured list, but would there be a team willing to take a flyer on his versatility
so
for the
Derek,
rest of the year?
If I'm familiar with the trade rules of the MLB, are you allowed to deal players on the 15 days, 60 day?
Yeah.
You are?
Yeah. Pretty sure you are.
I don't know who would take Kike because I don't expect Kike to play all year. I don't expect.
I think the target is a September return, late August, early September. And the thing is, the price for him is going to be low because he is on the injured list. But if there's a team that goes, we think he'll be back at the very least for the playoffs, and we'd love some versatility on our bench, a guy who, if we need a defensive replacement late in games, we can put him literally anywhere. I think there'd be teams that would be somewhat interested in that, or at least they'd be willing to make a phone call.
Is that about wrap up?
Just about. I do want to ask before I wrap this thing up, how many players from the MLB roster will the Red Sox trade by the trade deadline?
I mean, I'm gonna say roster is in like, the people that should be on the team, not people that are just happen to be on the team.
Yeah.
I'd say my guess is I think 5. That's my guess.
All right. So I'm thinking, I'll even name the players I'm thinking Rich Hill, Christian Vazquez, JD Martinez, Eovaldi, and Michael Walker. And then I actually think Kike gets dealt as well. So that's 6. I'm going with 6.
Had to one up. You always have to one up.
I do truly think 6 are going to go. I think Kike, he might not get a lot back because he's injured, but I feel like teams at the very least will be, even if they don't give up a lot, they'll be willing to take a chance that he'll be healthy for the playoffs because his versatility is so valuable.
Right.
Yeah, but that's going to wrap this one up. Make sure to check out all the Bleacher Brawls links in the description, the podcast website, Instagram, and Twitter, plus all the crew's Twitters. Make sure to check out, all that stuff. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell while you're down there. We're putting out a lot of great content. We have a bunch of trade deadline content on deadline day covering all the trades. And then we have a Wednesday morning podcast recapping the whole entire trade deadline. Then Thursday, Friday on the YouTube channel will be a Red Sox trade deadline recap, and then a Yankees trade deadline recap. So a lot of stuff going on here. We're very excited about it. For Joey, I'm Derek. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.